Well, by now we were supposed to have gotten back to repairing the jukebox, but you know how my life is. It's always one thing after another interfering. And today was a medical procedure for the wife. Tomorrow I got to take Mac, the poodle, to the vet, and then after that we have to go shopping, and that would be Wednesday. Thursday I'm going up to the Pettigene car show and swap meet and look around. At least that's the plan right now. Friday, I have to do some yard work and catch up. I'm starting to get behind again. You know, the grass it waits on no man, as they say. And then Saturday, it's back to the Pettigene show for the actual car show. The swap meet goes along all week, but at the end of the week on Saturdays, when the actual car show is, I hope to be able to do some filming and talking to some of those guys. They always like to brag about their cars, and I don't blame them, you know. Maybe I can have a good video for you there. So this entire week has kind of been muffed up, starting with the floor. For those of you who saw the mishmash vid where I had to lay the new floor in the dining room. Anyway, since I can't sit down and really concentrate on what I need to do here for any length of time as necessary without my mind saying, geez, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. We're just going to have to delay this until the beginning of next week, okay? And I need to get this video out of the camera so I can have the necessary memory in the camera for when I go up to the car show. And so I figured, hey, maybe I can't show you our next jukebox video, but I will fill the time in with the next Thunderbird video. How's that? And I've been flashing this thing around. You'll see this in the video also later on. And so let's get started. I'm sorry for the delay on this, but hopefully you'll enjoy the Thunderbird video. And always something going on around here all the time. Well, hello again. We've got the old tank. It's early in the morning. I've got to go to a doctor appointment this morning for my semi-annual PSA test. Don't you just love all the bloodletting these doctors do? Anyway, I rinsed the tank out with water, and then there was nothing in it, just a few fumes and everything. But after I dumped out the water, of course, what came out with it was the float. It's got gas inside of it, so that thing is no good. It doesn't matter anyway. It goes on the end of the sending unit we're fixing to take out. And I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and spray that now. Kind of help us a little bit. I'm about out of this stuff here. I better get big can out, I guess. Time for the big gun. Matter of fact, I am out. All right. Let's go around to the other end where the tank filler tube went in. I'll show you what we got there after we rinsed it. Look at that. Nothing but rust, Well, I'll tell you what, guys. This tank really is not salvageable as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I could spend a lot of money on it, taking it down to a radiator shop, having them boil it out, having them coat it, having them do all kinds of other stuff. I could do the stuff myself. By the time you spend all that money, time, and effort, you're better off just buying, biting the bullet and buying a new repro tank. The repros it would only be like, what, 50, 60 bucks, maybe 70 bucks less than going through all this other crap. And and then I'd be worried about it the whole time, I don't know what kind of lining they would put on the inside, sealer they would put on the inside. I don't know much about that sort of thing. How do I know in 20,000 miles the sealer wouldn't start flaking off and wind up in my filter and jam up the filter? And you don't know what really you're going to get nowadays. I went on the internet and I read all these testimonials about this sealer and that sealer. I don't even know who these people are. For all I know, they could be his cousins and uncles and aunts. These people that put these testimonials up there. So I don't know. And of course they say, well, yeah, the tank is sealed and everything. Yeah, but how long is it going to last? I'd rather have a repro. I think I'm just going to have to take it out of the budget. I didn't want to do it, but that's life. Too bad. So sad. You just got to go with the flow. Well, let me go ahead and get this sending unit out of here so I can show you folks at least who have never seen that done. What we have here. Let me get. You can buy a special tool on eBay for this. It's a round tool with slots in it that these tabs, let me zoom in there a little bit. Let me get out of the sun here a little bit too. That'll kind of help you. Let me zoom in here. Now this tank has a tab here. They're all the same basically, and the tank has a tab here. And there's another one down here at the bottom, okay? And that tool has slots in it, and it's round and flat with a long handle, and you just set it right down on top of those things, and these tabs fit up in those slots, and then you just crank it to the left. But we don't have the tool, and I'm not spending $30 plus shipping to get one just to open up this one tank. So what we're going to do is, see, this inner ring is the one that moves. This inner ring moves, and this thing on the outside that it sits down in does not move. Only the inner ring moves. So what we're going to do is take this little punch here with a hammer, and I'm going to tap that baby around, round, round, until it finally gets to this point right here. It's quite a movement, actually. There's a little tab right there. I don't know if you can see that little tab. That little tab you see right there swings around on all three of those things and hits this. Keeps it from going any further. So our job is to, don't bang on this tab. No, don't do that. Get down here and tap on this if you can. Just kind of gently does it. Soak it a little bit in, you know, whatever you got, you know, liquid wrench or whatever. Then just tap it on around. And there's a gasket underneath this thing. And then we'll go ahead and take out the entire sending unit, and we'll be able to have a much better look down inside with a light. Alright, a quick tap, and it came, it just swiveled right on around, you know, just swiveled right on out. So now we can take that out. That's just a retainer ring is all that is. Now we can go ahead and get this thing out of here. I'll have to have a little thin screwdriver, I think, to get underneath the lip. If you plan, this one's going to be no good, so I don't have to really worry about it too much. But if you're going to replace it with a new gasket, you want to be very, very careful taking out the old one, okay? If you're going to reuse it, be careful. Alright, let's see what I can do. I just got a tiny little screwdriver here. Alright, that didn't take much. How about that? Not much at all. Now there's kind of a trick to this. You got to kind of bend it this way and that way and fiddle fart around with it until you get it out. But you can do it. Well, how about that? We got us another float in there. Oh, you know what this means? This means this sending unit has been changed at one time. Look at, there's the new float. Or the new unit with the second float. That's kind of weird, huh? Alright, well that's what she looks like. Well, let's set that down here with the other float. Either that, or when they put the tank together, they messed it up. They just left it in there when they first built the car. I don't know. Now, of course, we have a rubber ring here. Let me get the rubber ring out if I can. What do I do with my screwdriver? Oh, wonderful. Well, I had it here a second ago. Maybe it's inside. Oh, here it is. Okay. See if I can get that rubber. See, there's a rubber ring here that goes down in a recessed area too, okay? This is kind of good that I'm able to show you guys this, because almost all cars are alike. They're all pretty much the same. You've got to have a good seal here, otherwise you leak gas all over your car while you're driving down the road. Alright, let's get a flashlight and shine down in there and see what we can find. Maybe I'll get my torch out and stick it around down in there. To get a better look in this tank, I pulled it in the garage and shut the door where it's dark, and that's what our tank looks like on the inside. All the way down in. Lots and lots and lots of rust. I don't know. I don't know how rusty a tank can be and still be reliable. And like I said, I'm just not sold on that tank sealer crap, you know. 10 years from now we find out that the stuff is no good and none of it was any good to begin with. It works great now, but later on maybe not. So that's what we're looking at, guys. Here's something a little bit interesting. The float on this, incidentally, this is a filter right here. This is a filter where fuel comes through. That thing's pretty caked up with rust too. God. Anyway, the fuel goes through that, and then this thing here is attached to a variable resistor right there that gives you your gas gauge, okay? The wire comes out from the variable resistor and connects there, which runs up to your dash where your gas gauge is. That's all there is to it. And as the float goes up and down, it changes resistance on that resistor, and that's it. But interesting thing about this is there's also liquid inside this float. Can you hear it? Well, now that we have the gas tank removed and the fuel pump removed on this end, the only thing we have left is the gas line, the metal gas line that goes from the front of the car, underneath the body of the car, all the way back to the gas tank. That too needs to be cleaned out. Well, how do we do that? Well, it's pretty easy. Well, actually, the attempt is pretty easy. Hopefully, it'll do the job. What you do is you take air pressure. I have my air compressor right here. And I will take this little nozzle. I'm going to fire up the old, let me get the light out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and fire up the old air compressor. Then I'm going to crawl underneath the car and I'm going to stick that nozzle in this end. Now this end has a rubber hose. The pipe ends, you know, and then it's a rubber hose from the end of the pipe up to the fuel pump. Same thing on the back. You saw me remove the short rubber hose back there. Now on the back there I have a pipe that I run down into a bucket. So if there's anything in the line, when I put this in the rubber hose on this end, crawl under the car and stick it up in there and just hit it with my hand, hopefully whatever's in that line will blow out into that bucket back there. If there's anything in there, it could be gas in there, it could be rust, could be dirt, could be nothing. I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and do this together. I'm going to go ahead and hook up the hose to the end of the nozzle just to show you how it's done in case anybody's ever interested. You know, usually you use low pressure, maybe 40 pounds. You know, I didn't care. I just put whatever the air compressor's putting out. My compressor puts out a maximum of like, I think 100 psi, but it doesn't matter. Not to me, anyway. Okay. Well, it seems to be flowing through without any problem. Alright, I'll tell you what, let's go to the rear and see what we got. Alright, there's the old bucket. I've got that tube coming down from the other end of the gas line where it connected to the tank. Let's see what we got, see if we got anything. Something came out. There's a couple of drips on the floor there. Might have blew out a little bit too hard. Oh yeah. Yeah, let's take it outside where we can get a better look. Alright, yep, there was some dirt in that line. Look at there. Little pieces of dirt. But I think we might have got them all out. Anyway, once we get everything put back together, we're going to put a brand new fuel filter. Might even put two. Just to make sure we caught it all. But, boy, that's some nasty looking gas, isn't it? It stinks to high heaven. Yeah. So now you know why you have to blow out your line if you ever take out your gas tank. Because it's a mess. Well, as I told you in the last video, we needed to pull the drums off the rear wheels and check the brake shoes to see what condition they're in, but I expect them to be in good condition. Now I've got them loose and it wasn't that much of a problem. Fortunately for me, you know, the brakes weren't locked to the hub, which of course we already knew because we drove the car in, and the center part here wasn't all rusted together, so they sort of came right out. Took a little, you know, you had to kind of move and put a little pry in the back on each side to kind of crack it loose, and then it just wiggle it back and forth. She finally came out. Both sides are now loose enough to be pulled. I'm going to pull the first one here. It's going to take two hands. This is a very heavy drum. So as soon as I get it off and get it on the ground, I'll come back and let you see what the shoes look like. Well, as expected, and I'm happy to say, those are nice thick brake pads, or brake shoes. That looks really nice, front and rear. This one here is a little bit thinner, but it's still in very good condition, brand new practically. Okay, now what we have to do is, this is your brake cylinder. You know, just because you look at your shoes and you say, oh yeah, they look good, springs look good, retaining clips work, you know, look good, adjuster looks good. Is this thing leaking or not? It could be it's leaking. And there's a plunger on each side that pushes out. And they push those, they push that black pin you see there, just below that spring. There's one there and one on the other end. They push out in this direction at the same time when you press the brake pedal. So if they're leaking, not good. You know, keep in mind our master cylinder was completely dry. So that's the first thing we got to check and see if they're leaking. And the way you do that is you peel back the rubber and hopefully you don't see any oil. I don't see any. Huh. Thanks for small things, huh? I don't see any there at all. Wonderful. That doesn't mean they're still working though. That just means that side's not leaking. Let's try the other side. Come on. Got to be a hole here somewhere for this light. There we go. Alright, let's try the other side. Alright, I'm happy to say that side's not leaking either. That's good. But, you know, like I said, there was no oil in the master cylinder, no brake fluid. So if there's no brake fluid in the master cylinder, well, of course you're not going to have any leaking way back here. Now let's check the inside of the drum. Oh boy, that's as smooth as a baby's butt. I think this thing has been completely redone. There's no way, of course, those are original brakes. These look really good. So whoever did this did a very good job. Now we're going to be washing this all off, doing it, you know, making it look really nice. I don't like brakes that are all nasty and gooked up and full of road dirt and dust and crap. It just bugs me. It's just been one of my pet peeves. I want the adjuster to move smoothly. If we have to, we'll take the adjuster out and grease it and make it work real nice. And this is the emergency brake cable right here. That cable, I got that thing hooked on. That's the emergency brake cable. Everything looks good back here on this wheel. Let's go around to the other side. Well, I'm happy to say the shoes over here are in excellent condition. Someone's done a brake job on this car. I don't know when, I don't know how long it was ago, but this time when I peeled away the rubber caps on the brake cylinders, a lot of rust fell out of there. That's not good, okay? Yeah, I don't know if I can zoom in here and show you that rust. That's not as good. That's almost as bad. See all that rust that fell out? I don't know. That's almost as bad as oil leaking. I don't know. What that means is I'm going to have to probably take apart these things and see what they look like. I don't know. I may have to wind up changing them. However, even if I have to change the wheel cylinders and put new ones in, they call them brake cylinders or wheel cylinders, whichever you want to call it. If I have to put new ones in, considering this is nice and smooth, this has had a these have been turned almost, by turned I mean they've been lathed down by a lathe, metal lathe, been cut down, and I don't know, you know, if I have to just change the wheel cylinders, it's not that big a deal, you know. It cost me a few bucks, but the safety factor is what I'm after, the safety factor. Now, look how clean that adjuster is down there. That's kind of strange. Really clean. Anyway, and of course, there's a mud wasp nest up under there. That's incredible. Look at that. Look at that. My God, there's a mud wasp nest inside a mud wasp nest on this car. Anyway, that's what's going on with the brakes. We're in pretty good shape, actually. But I'm almost certain I'm going to wind up replacing those wheel cylinders just to be on the safe side. They don't cost that much, and they're not that difficult. I've changed a million of those things. Alright, so what's next on the agenda? You know, the whole idea of getting the gas tank out and figuring out what we're going to do about getting that thing squared away, and the fuel pump, and blowing out the line and all that other crap. I want to be able to get the car started so I can take it in and out of the garage. You know, right now it's just kind of taking up space in there, and you can't move it, can't do anything with it until I get her going. I want to be able to tune up the engine a little bit, that sort of thing. You know, can't do that without fuel. So the next thing on the agenda is a carburetor, and I have gotten a carburetor from one of our good subscribers. And unfortunately, in the mail, these pipes here that you see, this is the brass one. You can see, this one's brass, all the rest are aluminum. It wasn't double boxed. So what happened was, whenever the postal department started throwing those boxes around, the weight of this thing kept going this way and that way inside that box, and it broke these brass things. Every one of them, smashed them all over, and this one here just broke them all apart. So I had to remove them. The only one that survived was this one here. So I had to take them all apart and remove these brass fittings, these tubes, they're air vents, and go downtown to my local hardware store, and I got these binder posts, I guess is what they call them, and then drilled out the center, cut them off, and I put them in here. I haven't glued them in yet, but they're going to be glued in. These are needed. These are vent pipes. Anyway, anytime you're going to ship anything like this, just because it seems to be strong and everything, a lot of this is pop metal. It wouldn't take much to break it. Always do a double boxing. You know, we radio guys, we know to do that. So anyway, there's a kit coming I've ordered. We're going to completely do a rebuild on this. By the way, the tag on this thing, Brendan, my good mentor there, who's, you know, he's also a master mechanic. He looked up the tag number on this carburetor, and this is the exact carburetor number that came on the Thunderbird. Isn't that cool? There's all kinds of different model numbers of the 4100. This is a Autolite 4100. There's all different kinds of 4100s with different kinds of tags and numbers on them, but this particular one, this number and this carburetor is the same kind that came on the Thunderbird. So we got real lucky on that. So maybe it was a small price to pay, you know, to have to fix these and change them and everything. Be careful when you ship this stuff. Our postal department does not care one bit about anything, okay? And we're going to go ahead and remove the thermostat. What do you want to do that for? Well, this car has been sitting for 3 years or more, and with no water in it or just partial water in it, and the thermostat may have stuck closed, and I either have to take it out either to clean it or replace it. Oh, well, what's the thermostat? You know, these are exactly the kind of questions I used to ask when I first started out. Well, I'm going to give you a quickie for those of you who don't know about thermostats. Different kind of quickie, you understand? Okay. Years ago, when they first came out with cars, the water would circulate from the engine through the radiator back to the engine. Nothing in between, just a flow of water in and out, in and out, in and out. And when they came out with heaters in the car, they had to wait for the water to completely warm up. It took a long time because the water was always circulating. It was being cooled, being circulated. And then they had to wait a long time for, once it got warm, to blow the air across the little radiator that's mounted on the inside of the car. There's a little radiator in there. They call it the heater coil. It's just that tiny radiator is all it is, just like the one up front here. And hot water circulates through, and then they blow air across it. But it took a while in order to do that, you know, to heat up all that water. So then somebody came out with a brilliant idea, and it was a brilliant idea. They said, wait a minute, why are we heating all of that water up trying to get heat? If we could contain the water in the engine until it heated up on its own, and then had an automatic valve that opened up once the water reached a certain temperature, releasing that hot water into the radiator, slowly releasing it out, we would get heat inside the car through that little radiator that the fan blows the air through. We would get it a lot faster because it wouldn't take so long to heat up the water inside the motor. We wouldn't have to heat it all. We could just slowly let it out once, you know, but it would have to be an automatic opening and closing valve that we could somehow put in the engine between the radiator and the motor. Wouldn't that be cool? All you got to do is heat up the water in the motor, and then once that hot water came out slowly and easily and started mixing with the cool water in the radiator, and the cool water in the radiator started running back into the motor, it would mix and warm up a whole lot faster, and you get heat almost instantaneously. Well, not quite instantaneously, but it takes about a mile. So that's what a thermostat does. It keeps the water in the motor until it reaches a certain temperature. Now, each of those thermostats are rated at different temperatures. You got a 160, 180, 200, and on up, okay? I think the old Chevy engine I used to run at 180 all the time, if I'm not mistaken. Some people say, oh, it's too hot. You know, some people say, oh, it's too cold. You know, whatever. 180 degrees seemed to work for me. Seems to me that's what I used. Might have been 160, but I think I ran 180 all the time. So, this car has that thermostat in it, and I'm sure, and it could be stuck closed. It may not ever open because it's all gummed up and stuck closed. And that way the water can never circulate. The engine gets too hot. We burn up our engine. No! So we're going to take it out and look at it, and they're not that expensive. I'll probably go ahead, again, as a safety type factor, as far as, you know, protecting the motor. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. Now, let me show you where that thing is at. At least I think that's where it's at. That's where it's supposed to be at. This is your reservoir tank, water hose connected to the radiator. Down here is another hose. See it down there in the bottom, way down in there? You see where it goes into the engine block? Right there where it goes into the engine block is where we will find our thermostat. At least we better. Let's start ripping and tearing. Alright, I have removed the hose here. I have removed the overflow hose from this little deal here. We're just going to let it hang right there rather than pull it all out. I don't feel like threading it back down through. Now, underneath that hose that goes in is actually metal. And there's a bolt at 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock on the flange. I'm going to take those out and hopefully the thing will just pop right off. Well, both of the bolts are out. They're 1/2 inch and boy are they long. They're rusty too. They need to be de-rusted a little bit. And now if my hypothesis is right, I've got both hoses loose. I've removed both bolts. With my superhuman strength, I should be able to just grab that thing and pull it and it should come right loose from the engine. There it is. It did. How about that? Well, let me finish getting it out. Well, there is your thermostat, people. Yes, it is. This whole thing, it just sits in that block. And I'll show you how it opens up at a certain temperature. When it opens up, this is what happens. That brass thing, that spring here pulls back and this brass thing opens up. Now watch. See the water coming out? That's the way it does. It moves in and out like that. So it looks pretty good actually. And I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take it out anyway. I mean, I got nothing, nothing going on anyway today. We'll go ahead and take it out, clean it up, put it in a pot of boiling water in the house and see if she's going to open up all the way on her own. Alright, she's out leaving a great big hole, and of course you can still see some of the antifreeze up in there. Now I'm going to have to scrape that gasket all off and clean that thing all the way around, because there is a gasket that goes between the flange right here and the block of the engine. Now, one more thing, it is possible, to put these things in backwards. Now, I've seen some engines where you can't do that because the inside, the way the engine is designed, one side is deeper than the other, and it won't go in because it keeps hitting. So you automatically know you got to turn it around the other way. However, on this one, what we have here, let me get this thing hooked up so we can show you a little something more. This thermostat is can you make out that top number of 195? See it? This is a 195 degree thermostat. Also, on the back of the thermostat, there is a little bit of writing that tells you which way to put it in. It's telling you with this arrow that the other side is the side that goes toward the radiator. So just like you saw it when I took it out, it has to go this way. This side facing out. Okay? Put it in backwards and it won't work too good. Alright, since the last Thunderbird video, I have some other things I need to show you. Remember our fuel pump that had that long filter on the bottom that I did not like and I still don't like? Well, our good subscriber, Wayback Tech, he said, John, if you go to Summit Racing, you can find them without that filter. And I said, now that's an idea I like. I looked into it and it was very cheap. See the difference? That is a fuel pump I like. I don't have to worry about any filters. Look at the less amount of room it takes up for this. Very cool idea there, brother Wayback Tech. I like that. So I went ahead and bought it. Okay, the next thing I went out and picked up was a, let me see, we got a few things here. I got a sending unit. We of course need a sending unit for our gas tank. The other one was just shot to pieces as you already saw in the video. So that was a real cheap little deal. Plus I bought an O-ring for the filler tube that goes into the gas tank, the one that was all flattened out and messed up. So that we got one of those in. And I got a carburetor repair kit for our carburetor. We're going to go ahead and rebuild that baby. And let me see, this little baby right here that I showed you earlier was that's for the putting the thermostat back in. It goes on the engine block right down here like that. So we got to have one of those when we put it back in. So set that baby somewhere where it won't get ruined, maybe right here. That's good. And let me see, what else did I get? Oh yeah, last but not least, we picked ourselves up a brand new fuel tank. 22 pounds of all-American fuel tank, probably made in China. I do not know. Anyway, I think that's about it. The carburetor, we've got the sending unit, the gasket, the fuel pump, and the O-ring for the tube and the fuel tank. Now our good subscriber Brett Froline, you know, he said, John, you try to buy a gas tank for this and all this other crap that goes with it and everything else you're probably going to need. It's gonna run over $400, you know, meaning I guess between $400 or $500. Well, you know, if you shop careful, guys, and you look around and you have someone like I do in my corner, Brendan up in Detroit, you know, he sits around, retired also, eating bonbons, watching his new 4K TV all the time. So why not have him go out and search for a few parts I need? Keeps the old boy busy, you know what I'm saying? Everything you saw here, $295. Everything. That shipping costs the works. Shop around. You can get very good deals. By the way, one more thing on this gas tank. I first went to Max Thunderbird on the internet, MAC''S. They have a lot of good parts for Thunderbirds, but you know, they charge quite a bit of money for their stuff. They wanted, I believe it was $251 for this tank plus shipping. And I got talking to Brendan. I said, look, I don't want to pay $251 for a gas tank. I think that's ridiculous. I said, if I could save $100, I'm going to save $100. I just have to keep looking around. He fired back an email almost instantaneous, and he said, okay, here, go here. Rock Auto, $156. I saved $100 by going to Rock Auto from Max Thunderbird. So just goes to show. Brendan saved the day on that particular item for sure. I've got this pot of water going on the stove. Let's see what our temperature is. I put hot water in it, so save us a little time. Alright, it's at 117.5. When it gets up to about 190 degrees or so, I'm going to go ahead and throw our thermostat in there. This looks brand spanking new. After all, I've repeated that the engine was completely rebuilt, the guy said. I believe him. You know, I mean, everything I've seen has been really, really nice so far concerning the motor. And we'll go ahead and chunk that baby in there and see if that thing actually opens up. That spring will collapse and it will pull that thing open. We are at 193, 194. That's close enough for me. Let's chunk it in there and see what happens. See that center thing right there? It is moving outward, which means that it's pulling this open on the other side. Yeah, out. And as you can see the light through there? It is open. So guess what? This little thermostat works fine, lasts a long time. Yep, she is open all the way there. See the light through there? Okay, well that's it. Now you know how a thermostat works. And as the engine cools down, of course, the thing will close and shut off like you saw it before. Well, that's it for now. I've bent your ear long enough. Things are looking kind of messy right here, right now, but not for long. I've got to get the rear end done and get the gas tank in there so I can, you know, right now the car is jacked up in the rear and all the water in the engine block is coming this way, so I'm going to have to vacuum a lot of that water out down in there where the thermostat fit in order to get the new one in, or get the, you know, the new gasket on and the thermostat back in. So until next time, I'll tell you what, we'll just call it quits for now. Our internet is down again. Apparently there was a storm somewhere, wiped out the cable. No telling when it's going to be back up. Until then, this is John.